Dongdo was the last fortress in Ming hands. Wang Tong sent for aid, but reinforcements would not be able to reach him easily while Lei Loi held the north and the coastlines. Still, Wang Tong's fortress was well fortified and well supplied. If this fortress could hold out long enough, a new Ming army, now marching from China, would break the Vietnamese army and send Lei Loi and his men back into the hills. The war was only one battle away from being over, and the fate of Vietnam hung in the balance. The Ming are attacking us! Hold your ground!
I think not, foolish commander. Why in the blazing earth would you ever put archers in front of the army? I should fire you.
Attack them in the flanks, men!
Finally, some elephants. It was beginning to look like we would lose this. The Chinese champions are locked onto our rattan archers, which is ultra annoying. We would prefer to keep them alive for later fights. Infantry can be sacrificed.
Fight with courage in your hearts, men! The Ming are all but defeated.
The battle you just witnessed has RNG outcomes. Keeping the elephants and rattan archers alive is pretty important, so I'd recommend reloading for a good result.
It is the unemotional, reserved, calm, and detached warrior who wins, not the rash man seeking vengeance, nor the ambitious seeker of fortune.
As for the starting economy, the mission designers thought it was a good idea to leave almost all our workers idle, just to make us busy with tasking everyone to collect resources that are right in front of them. Lei Loi is a future king in the making, yes, but why is everyone so lazy? Well, at least we have med money. After collecting loot from all the previous victories, Lei Loi is very rich and can immediately pay for technologies and upgrades. I see no reason not to immediately research bracer, plate armor, two-man saw, and crop rotation. Paper money is pretty costly, so maybe not. It only gives a trickle of gold and takes time to pay off. The Ming attack ridiculously quickly on this map, and once again, have infinite resources, so we can research paper money later or perhaps skip it entirely. The mission is pretty straightforward. We have to crush the Ming vanguard, who will try to blitz us with Ming's trademark army of everything, and then the Ming fortress, Dongdo, which spams units infinitely from an unholy number of production buildings. Basically, we can ignore the mission notes. The Ming are not on the defensive whatsoever, but their defense simply consists of early aggression and more aggression and more aggression and more aggression. That's the only way the Ming know how to defend. Their actual defense is terrible. It's just the same bunch of towers, castles, bombard towers every few meters we've seen in the rest of the campaign, which fell easily to our bombard cannons or trebuchets. Despite the delay caused by chemistry being a prerequisite, bombard cannons are definitely preferred in this case, as there are so many Ming buildings to destroy that we don't want to pack, unpack, and relocate trebuchets. As for our two bases, the western flank tends to receive heavier and stronger attacks compared to the eastern flank. That's why Lei Loi relocated all the elephants and rattan archers who survived the first battle to the west, despite them being closer to the eastern castle. Also, there's no castle in the western flank, despite more Ming activity. No doubt, the map makers wanted us to be weak precisely where the Ming like to attack, so we shall remedy this by placing castles in the west.
Dân nữ xin làm ngay. Dân nữ xin làm ngay. Tuân mệnh, thợ săn. Dân nữ đến ngay.
Thảo dân xin chờ săn.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Thợ săn.
Bái kiến điện hạ. Thợ săn.
Dạ bẩm, nô tỳ. Thợ săn.
There's a rhino on both flanks, but the western flank's Rhino is pretty dangerous to take, as it is far forward and within reach of Ming towers. We'll just skip it entirely. Lei Loi is swimming in food and does not need to invest the micro.
Nô tài.
In fact, we don't really need food that much, it's just for upgrades and to keep the 3 town centers going. Battle elephants are actually a trap in this mission due to how expensive they are. The Ming train so many units that they even overwhelm elephants. They train halberdiers and monks, too, in great numbers. We cannot easily replace dead elephants, due to the limited gold available. Instead of elephants, we will just make cheap arbalests and call it a day.
Dân phu. Nô tài. Bái kiến điện hạ. Dân phu. 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 Dân phu.
Lei Loi has a lot of battle elephants already at the start. We will use them for meat shielding purposes, but once they die, we won't replace them. Arbalests provide a higher damage to cost ratio, and we can keep them alive by simply not letting the Ming get close to them. How do we do that? Well, the Ming don't use any rams, so the Chinese don't have any unit that can actually get close enough. Cavaliers, champions, light cavalry, Chukonu, arbalests, all will just die to our arrows. We also don't want to bother with rattan archers, despite having castles. It's much faster to mass arbalests as they train in archery ranges, which are spammable, versus castles, which are gated by 650 stone per production building. Lei Loi needs his army fast because the Ming attack fast. It doesn't really matter that rattan archers have better stats than arbalests, because the arbalests are ready sooner. Speaking of the Ming attack, here they come. As our ranges have not been finished, we'll make a few rattans, but I'm not paying for the elite rattan archer upgrade, so we won't make too many.
Dân nữ xin trở lại, dân nữ xin làm ngay. Dân phu.
Bái kiến điện hạ. Tung mòn. Dân phu.
Will you look at that? That's 3 trebuchets already in the first wave. Guess we will research elite battle elephant, just in case we need something tankier than normal archers.
Điện hạ Thảo dân xin làm ngay. Thảo dân đến ngay. Dân phu.
Lei Loi needs to survive the initial wave, the Ming get easier to deal with over time. As you can see, a lot of the starting elephants died despite being supported by many archers, and a castle. Do not underestimate the Ming push. Once they've reached the first layer of defenses, it's very hard to regain lost ground. They have unlimited resources, so any breach is magnified exponentially forever, but conversely, if we show enough strength to stop them, the Ming turn into a joke that sends unlimited units just to die. Both our flanks are almost out of soldiers after the first Ming wave, so we have to repopulate as much as we can before the second wave strikes.
Bái kiến điện hạ, dân nữ xin làm ngay. Lao dịch. Dạ bẩm, dân nữ xin làm ngay. Dân phu. dân phu 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 dân phu.
We're fielding light cavalry to hold the east as they're cheaper than elephants. The Ming don't attack on this side with high intensity, so their main purpose is to snipe trebuchets, without costing any gold. Of course, light cavalry lose to Chinese cavaliers, but cavaliers die to castle fire. Lei Loi will defend while booming his way to bombard cannons. Bombard cannons are a great way to snipe enemy trebuchets from range, protecting our castle, and even better on the offense, as they outrange fortifications. We don't have to worry too much about the Ming vanguard, as long as our castles stay up. The Ming do send armies large enough to overwhelm castle defenses, so it's not enough to just have a castle, but to also significantly augment its power by defending with army. The population limit is very high at 250, so this gives us the ability to field a very large army. We'll also distribute our lumberjacks around to ensure their efficiency is optimal. It's not good to run out of resources mid-battle.
Dạ bẩm có thảo dân. Dân phu dân dân phu dân phu dân dân phu dân phu dân 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 phu.
Bái kiến điện hạ.
The gold will run out pretty soon, so we need to win some battles, gain map control, to gain more gold mines. It's possible to beat Ming even with just Imperial skirmishers and light cavalry, aka pure trash, but let's not be beggars.
Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh. Dân phu. Bái kiến điện hạ.
Dân phu.
This gold mine is sorely needed, but the Ming encampment is too close to it. Therefore we'll expand our eastern territory by placing a new forward castle, and send out our arbalests.
Có gì sai bảo bái kiến
Thảo
điện
dân đã
hạ.
rõ.
Lei Loi is confident we'll win this fight, so we'll just drop the tower on the Ming vanguard's face. Once it goes up, it will help to destroy several Ming towers.
Thảo dân sẽ làm ngay.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo.
The Ming don't have a lot of troops on the eastern flank, so even our light cavalry is pushing them back. Therefore we'll concentrate our numbers on the western side, as the Ming army is much stronger on this flank.
Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh.
Dạ bẩm, có dân nữ đến ngay. Dân phu. Dân phu.
We haven't been pushed by anything too major yet, but more army is needed to be fully secure. Let's try going on the offensive. We're close enough to the western castle to retreat back if necessary.
Xin phục mệnh tiểu nhân đã rõ.
Dân nữ xin chờ lệnh. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Lao dịch.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Dân phu.
Có tiểu nhân xin tiểu nhân làm cây. Điện hạ có tiểu nhân xin tiểu nhân đã rõ.
Well, we're retreating. Chu Ko-nu will easily shred bombard cannons if they get in range. Fortunately, Chu Ko-nu have less range than Arbalests. The Ming army manages to land a single trebuchet volley on our castle, but is sniped by our bombard cannons before it gets a second shot off. On the eastern flank, Lei Loi is shift queuing the bombard cannons to take out multiple buildings, so that we can look away and come back to see the Ming entirely wiped out. Our castle, arbalests, and light cavalry should be enough to protect the bombard cannons even if we're not actively microing. On the western flank, the Chinese cavaliers have dived deep to snipe our bombard cannons, but this gives our castle and arbalests free shots at them. We will simply build more bombard cannons. 4 siege workshops should do the trick.
Dạ bẩm, có dân phu.
Bái kiến điện hạ. Dạ bẩm, có thảo dân.
Dân phu.
Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh. Dạ bẩm, có thảo dân.
Xin phục mệnh. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Tiến công. Xin phục mệnh. Xin tiểu nhân làm cây.
The eastern bombard cannons have finished off the Ming easily. Now it's time for the buildings on the other side of the river.
Các quân đệ, xông lên, tiến công, các quân đệ, xin phục mệnh nhân đã rõ.
Dân nữ xin chờ lệnh. Bái kiến điện hạ.
Tung mời thảo dân đến ngay.
The gold is forward. We will claim that territory with the castle.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Xin phục mệnh, xin tuân lệnh. Các quân đệ, giết.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Phu dịch.
Điện hạ tiểu nhân xin phục mệnh. Xông lên, giết.
We can't build it as far to the front as we like, due to enemy trebuchets and fortifications, but this position should be good enough to protect our future gold mine and our Arbalest army.
Dân nữ xin chờ lệnh. Dân phu. Dân phu. Dân phu. Dân nữ đã dân phu. Dân phu. Dân phu.
We'll build more archery ranges too, in case our Arbalests die.
Dạ bẩm, có dân nữ.
Bái kiến điện hạ.
Dân phu.
Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Xin phục mệnh, xin tiểu nhân đã rõ. Điện hạ có gì tiểu nhân đã rõ. Có tiểu nhân, tiến công. Điện hạ có gì tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân làm ngay. Các quân đệ, giết. Tiến công. Xông lên, tiến công. Các quân đệ, xông lên, giết. Xin tiểu nhân đã rõ. Các quân đệ, xông lên, giết. Tiến công. Các quân đệ, xông lên, tiến công. Có tiểu nhân làm đã rõ. Xông lên, giết. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Xin phục mệnh.
The Eastern Ming aren't making much more than sporadic efforts to neutralize our push. Trickling in single light cavalry is not going to cut it. Our Arbalests will simply kill the horse.
Dân nữ đến ngay. Dân nữ xin làm ngay. Dân nữ xin làm ngay.
Finding the right position to camp outside Ming fortifications is a challenge.
Điện hạ
We want our arbalests to be close enough to stop any Ming snipers, while not taking damage from the buildings. Incidentally, this is why we're avoiding elephants. Aside from elephants being expensive, they can't project power at a distance and have to move up close to deal damage.
Có tiểu nhân, xông lên, giết. Điện hạ có tiểu nhân, xin phụng mệnh tiểu nhân làm đã rõ, tiểu nhân làm đã rõ. Các quân đệ, giết. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiểu nhân đã rõ.
Both our eastern and western flanks are advancing at a similar rate. There is much more resistance on the western side, though, so I expect the east to reach Dongdo first. Ming's vanguard are trying to break our push with their own archers, but Chinese arbalests are inferior to Vietnamese ones. The Vietnamese have a civilization bonus that gives 20% more HP to our archer line, so we'll take these fights handily. Also, we simply have more arbalests, while the Ming diversified into an army of everything, blunting their firepower. There's no point going half melee, half ranged, when the melee will just melt to concentrated arbalest fire and the ranged have less firepower due to half the army being melee. And we're out of stone to drop more castles, so this guard tower will do. It's not a lot of damage, but every bit helps.
Xin phụng mệnh, tiểu nhân đã rõ. Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Giết. Điện hạ có nhân đã làm ngay. Xin phụng mệnh, tiểu nhân làm ngay. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiến công. Có tiểu nhân. Các quân đệ, giết. Xin phụng mệnh. Có tiểu nhân xin tuân lệnh, xông lên. Các quân đệ, điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiểu nhân đã rõ ngay. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiểu nhân đã rõ, tiểu nhân.
The Eastern Ming vanguard are fully defeated, but on the west, Lei Loi mistargeted a house when it should have been the tower, so the Ming have map control, still.
Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân đã rõ.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo?
Tuân lệnh đã rõ. Tuân mệnh.
We weren't expecting the Ming army to show up in full force in the east. This may be too many troops for us. All we have are light cavalry and arbalests here, and not in high numbers either.
Dân sự xin làm ngay.
Có tiểu nhân, điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiến công. Các quân đệ, giết. Phụng mệnh. Tiến công.
Not sure how we overpowered those Chu Ko Nu, but it's a lucky thing their onagers tunnel visioned on the wrong units and didn't take a shot at our bombard cannons. Somehow, our trash units prevailed. The Ming lost both their Chu Ko Nu and their siege. We also lost all our archers, but our light cavalry have magically survived.
Điện hạ có gì sai
Tuân
bảo?
lệnh. Dân nữ đến ngay. Dân phu.
Xin phụng mệnh, tiểu nhân làm ngay.
So instead of getting cleaned up, Lei Loi gained map control of the east and will take all the gold and stone on this flank. We'll also fortify this side with a castle.
Dân nữ xin trở lại kiến điện hạ. Dân phu.
To conserve gold, we won't train arbalests on this side, but Imperial skirmishers should suffice.
Dân phu. Dạ bẩm, có dân nữ.
Có tiểu nhân đã rõ. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo, tiểu nhân đã rõ. Các quân đệ, giết. Tiến công. Các quân đệ, xông lên. Giết. Xin phụng mệnh. Các quân đệ, giết.
Bái kiến
Dân nữ
điện
đến
hạ.
ngay. Dân phu.
Có tiểu nhân. Tiến công. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân đã ngay. Xông lên. Giết. Có gì sai bảo, đệ. Xông lên. Tiến công. Các quân đệ, tiến công. Xông lên. Tiến công. Xông lên. Các quân đệ, giết. Xin phụng mệnh.
bẩm có thảo dân.
It's pretty good fortune that we kept these bombard cannons and can repair them, because earlier, it looked like all of them were going to die. Now they will enable us to push into Dongdo from the east, which will open a second front in addition to the push from the west.
Phu dịch.
Bái kiến điện hạ.
Dân phu.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Dân phu, dân phu, dân phu, dân phu.
Có tiểu nhân tuân lệnh. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Tiến công. Xông lên. Các huynh đệ. Tiến công. Xông lên. Huynh đệ. Có tiểu nhân đã rõ. Xông lên. Tiến công. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân làm ngay. Có tiểu nhân đã rõ.
Dân nữ xin chờ lệnh. Dạ bẩm dân phu.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Các huynh đệ. Tiến. Xông lên. Tiến công. Các huynh đệ. Tiến. Xin phụng mệnh. Điện hạ có tiểu nhân. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiến công. Các huynh đệ. Tiến. Xin phụng mệnh. Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Xin phụng mệnh. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo.
The Ming vanguard is no more. Now we can fully focus on the enemy fortress.
Dạ bẩm có thảo dân.
Dân phu.
Có tiểu nhân đã rõ.
All things considered, the Ming vanguard were pretty easy. This faction actually has an economy, so they're not capable of infinitely spamming
Bái
units.
kiến điện hạ.
Dongdo is a different story, though.
Có tiểu nhân làm đã rõ. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân làm ngay. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Xin tiểu nhân làm ngay. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Dân phu.
Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Có tiểu nhân các sống lên. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Làm ngay. Các huynh đệ. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân làm ngay đã rõ. Xin tiểu nhân làm ngay. Sống lên. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Sống lên. Giết. Có tiểu nhân. Tiến công. Các huynh đệ. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Đã rõ. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiến công. Sống lên. Có tiểu nhân. Tiến công.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Dân phu.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Xin phụng mệnh. Sống lên. Giết. Có tiểu nhân. Tiến công. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo.
Dạ bẩm
Lao dịch.
dân nữ.
Có tiểu nhân.
It's probably a bit too ambitious to mine gold right in front of Dongdo. The Ming aren't happy and trebbed our mining camp down.
Xin phụng mệnh. Có tiểu nhân. Sống lên. Giết. Sống lên. Giết. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Làm ngay. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Sống lên. Giết. Có tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân làm ngay.
Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh.
Điện hạ có tiểu nhân đã làm ngay.
Our siege workshop was also too forward and was trebbed down, but happily, it wasn't our castle.
Dân phu. 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 Lao dịch.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Đã rõ. Xin phụng mệnh. Các huynh đệ. Giết.
But the western gate of Dongdo has been all but breached. Our army will enter the fortress soon.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Có tiểu nhân. Tiến công. Xin phụng mệnh. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Điện hạ tiểu nhân làm ngay. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Xin phụng mệnh.
Dạ bẩm có thảo dân.
Bái kiến điện hạ. Dịch.
On the east, we need to set up some production buildings before we can commence our siege. Our eastern army lacks the numbers needed to achieve full penetration, even though we did destroy a castle, 2 bombard towers, and the gate.
Nữ xin chờ lệnh.
Dân phu. Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh.
Có tiểu nhân. Các huynh đệ. Giết. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Xin phụng mệnh. làm đã rõ. Có tiểu nhân đã rõ. Xông lên. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiểu nhân đã rõ. Tiến công. Có tiểu nhân làm ngay. Tiểu nhân đã rõ, xin phụng mệnh. Có tiểu nhân, các huynh đệ, giết! Tiểu nhân đã rõ, xin phụng mệnh. Tiểu nhân làm ngay.
Before we take the central castle, the production buildings make our bombard cannons a little nervous. So we'll target the range in case units stream out of it, and reposition some arbalests to be in front of the cannons.
Bái kiến điện hạ. Dạ bẩm, có thảo nhân phu. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Thảo dân đến nhân phu. Thảo dân xin chờ lệnh. Dân phu. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Thảo dân xin làm phu.
Well, our bombard cannons have simply melted a whole section of Dongdo's fortress. There was very little Ming resistance, as any freshly trained unit coming out of their production buildings are simply shot down by arbalests.
Điện hạ có gì sai bảo? Dân nữ xin chờ lệnh.
Có tiểu nhân làm đã rõ. Điện hạ có gì sai bảo. Tiến công. Xin phụng mệnh. Các đệ giết! Có tiểu nhân phụng mệnh. Xin phụng mệnh. Làm đã rõ. Các đệ giết! Các đệ giết! Điện hạ có gì làm ngay.
On the eastern side, Dongdo is also crumbling, their castle unable to defend with Chu Konu, as any Chu Konu are simply suppressed by Imperial skirmishers. There's a second gate behind the first gate to the east, but our units don't need to enter. Our bombard cannons can simply target the archery range from over the walls, while our western army cleans up the rest of the fortress inside out. This final fortress isn't putting much of a fight. The three-pronged attack mission was much harder, as we couldn't use arbalests due to Naen's Imperial skirmisher horde. And two of our enemies had battle elephants. The Ming have barely anything left. Guess this is the end of their stay in Vietnam. The final castle in the final fortress falls, not with a bang, but with a whimper.
All enemy castles in the fortress have been destroyed. Victory is ours at last.
Our forward siege workshop didn't have the chance to build any new bombard cannons, because the Battle of Dongdo is over.
The Ming were defeated on the battlefield, and the last fortress fell. Le Loi and Wang Peng met for the first time and agreed to a truce. It was apparent that the two had great respect for each other. The remaining Ming soldiers, numbering more than 80,000, were now at the mercy of the Vietnamese. Le Loi was lenient, however, and spared their lives. He invited the Ming generals to a lavish banquet and allowed all of the Ming soldiers to return to China unharmed. He even provided ships to transport them and released all prisoners that were taken in the war. Le Loi knew that the Ming emperor would never give up while his honor was at stake. To make sure the emperor would not lose face and to secure the future of Vietnam, he sent lavish gifts to the emperor and offered Dai Viet as an independent tributary state of the Ming. It was a small price to pay for peace and stability. Le Loi became emperor, and his dynasty would reign over an independent Vietnam for centuries. Le Loi would forever be known as the hero of the people of Vietnam.